What is ACX and how can it help you sell more books? My guest today is Dale L. Roberts, and he's going to tell you how. Dale Roberts, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate being back on.
I always want to do the Dale L. Roberts. I always stumble over your name because you've made you're a legend on YouTube with the Dale L. Roberts brand. You know that.
Yeah. Actually, and the funny thing is, you ready for this? A little bit of insights. I'm sure all of your viewers want to know this. When I was in wrestling, I was known as Lou Roberts, and that actually was my symbol. And
really?
Believe it or not, you actually will see it actually caught on within the independents, and some larger independent wrestlers actually started using that as tribute to me. There you go.
You know what? Someday we've got to do an interview based about your wrestling career because you keep alluding to that. But I've never heard the details or seen the pictures of you flying through the air. So
oh gosh,
let's offer up some proof here, El Grande. All right. Hey, what we're talking about today, you've been on the show before. We are old pals. You are an entrepreneur. You are a best-selling author, a YouTuber, and you are my resident expert on the topic of audiobooks. Tell us a little bit about, we're going to go into the mechanics of it, but a little background on you really quickly and what you're doing in the world of audiobooks.
Actually, it's really, I consider myself farthest from being an expert, but I do know
You're
enough.
the only one I know, brother.
I do know enough that if for some reason I only had to rely on audiobooks, it'd still keep my wife and I fed and clothed and such. So I currently use one of a few options available online called Audiobook Creation Exchange. Now, it's for short ACX, so for the sake of brevity in our conversation, I'll keep calling it ACX.
Yeah.
So ACX actually has distribution to Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Okay, these three are really big money makers, as you can imagine. Amazon, you're going to make a little bit of fair amount of money. Now, for ACX purposes, I started about 2 years ago, and it was
let's back up because you started as a traditional author writing the books. How did you decide to make the jump to audiobooks? Why did you do so? And talk a little bit about that.
I'd like to do one thing, but then try to go back to the well. So in other words, I had books that were doing fairly well on Kindle as well as in paperback. And I should say ebook. So if I say Kindle again, just think ebook because I'm distributing through iBooks and Barnes and Noble and so on and so forth. So at any rate, those two were doing really well. And it was when I was actually working directly with Jason Brock, our good close mutual friend. And he had brought up, hey, have you put anything to ACX yet? I told him no. And the only reason was I didn't know too much about it. Right. I was afraid it was going to require a lot of time and it required a lot of capital. And as you know, this business can be a bit of a gamble. You spend, say, $2,000 on a book, that's, you can't guarantee its success. Sure, you can market the heck out of it, but if the audience isn't going to buy, it's not going to buy. So that's the reason why I stayed away from it for so long, but he had challenged me, and that's one of the worst things to do with me is challenge me.
You are the king of the triple dog dare.
I am. It is. And I've gotten better over the years. I used to do some really stupid things based on dares.
I dare you to shave your eyebrows.
Yeah, I haven't done that one yet, though. I've come close.
The gauntlet is down, bitch. Come on.
No.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, you can actually see right here, I have this Rode NT1A, and this is actually a recommended product through ACX because when Jason had laid down the gauntlet, said, hey, get your stuff up over to ACX, immediately I'm thinking, okay, I can't afford a voiceover talent or narrator. So why don't I just go ahead and invest in this? I've got a good enough voice for radio, not a face for it. Well, maybe a face for it.
Well, let's back up a second. So you had books, they were selling on Kindle. You decided to go the audiobook route. What is that process when you go to ACX? You have the option of recording your own books or paying other people to do it? What's the process there?
That is a good point, and something I was just going to start to get over into.
Okay.
The problem was, I thought, okay, so you've got two options here, actually three technically. You can come to the table with your own made audio recording. So let's say, for instance, Tim, you do voiceover work.
Mm-hmm.
I could reach out to you, pay you X amount of dollars, and you would get my work done for me. So
it's basically me reading your book.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Essentially. And it's going to be a little bit more complicated, and hopefully we'll cover a little bit more. And thankfully, actually, I just spoke with one of my close friends who actually is a voiceover talent, and he explained the process to me on his end of things. So hopefully I can kind of shed some light on that.
Good.
The other option that you're going to be able to do is, of course, record your own. So you're coming to the table with your own audiobook ready to go. Let's say, for instance, that you just have zero expertise, you have zero patience for this. You can come to ACX, and they actually have a marketplace of experienced narrators and some inexperienced. And hopefully I'll shed some light on the inexperienced part, because it actually will give you a few chuckles. Any event, what you can do is, let's say I've got my workout plan book I'm releasing, and it's been put out on Kindle, and all I need to do is go into ACX. I say, okay, I'm going to make this into an audiobook. This is what I'm looking for. You can specifically narrow down the type of narrator you're looking for, male or female. You're looking for accents. Are you looking for a certain age or certain sound? Do they need to be character-driven voices on it? So on and so forth.
It's almost like going to Fiverr.
Exactly, but less of a pain in the butt. And here's the cool thing is, you can put a book up for audition, but it doesn't cost you a thing. So even if you want to be entertained, which Tim, highly advise you do this, even if you want to be entertained, put your book up there and people will start to apply for it and give you auditions. You're going to get a few really good auditions.
Yeah.
I'm going to guarantee you're going to get a lot of really bad ones where it sounds like someone just took their phone and did their audition that way, which I
probably did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't advise you applying or auditioning for a gig with this. And here's another one, too. I always used to love this, is when people would audition for my book, reading somebody else's book. And I'm like, no, fail. Yeah. Fail. Here we go. I got to pull out the L for you here, Tim. Yeah.
Loser.
Yeah, and that's where the funny story kind of comes into play when it comes to, the phone sounding one, or it's nothing against some people, but if you don't have good speaking skills or reading skills, this is not the job for you. And I had a guy, he applied for a thing, and I swear to you, it was, and I'm not trying to shame anybody for not having good orating skills or reading skills, but this guy is going, and then the push up. I'm like, dude, no. I in fact, how about this? I'll pay you some money and go get some reading, instructions. So at any rate, you can essentially hire a narrator. There's two ways you can do this. You can do it through finished price per hour. Stay with me for just a second on this one here. Finished price per hour can sometimes be very confusing. And thank you. He's doing my lawn outside. Finished price per hour works like this. Let's say you've got a book. It's 10,000 words, which 10,000 words typically comes out to about an hour of reading content. So you and I both know it's not going to take this person, they're going to do an hour of reading that you're going to hear, but there is more than an hour of work, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on the quality of your narrator and the experience that they have. Hence why it's called finished price per hour. And I can't tell you how many times I run into newbie self-publishers or people that are new to audiobook, and when they get a pitch for $100 to $300 per finished hour, they're going, it's like sticker shock.
Yeah,
they're like,
sure.
Like, that's actually pretty reasonable. $100 to $300 per finished hour is, because you have to think, how long is it taking for this person to produce this high quality 1 hour of, your book? So you have to think about, is this worth the investment? So I wouldn't recommend, if you've got some kind of garbage publication, doing finished price per hour. And here is where it gets exciting. Hopefully I'm not going too far off. Am I?
No, you keep going. You're doing good.
So the other way is called a 50-50 author split. Okay. So royalty split, excuse me. Mm-hmm. How this works out is you essentially part with 50% of royalties. And that is in exchange for their service to read your book.
Royalties being the amount of money that you're going to make when someone downloads your audiobook and listens to it?
Exactly. Yes.
And that's the net, the royalty after the cost.
Okay. Yes, exactly. And I'll hopefully we'll get to royalties when it comes to ACX in just a minute, because it starts to get real hazy. Some people are going to be like, oh, wow, this is great. 50%. I don't have to read anything. They do all the work. And that's really the beauty of it. This is where the narrator or the voiceover talent takes all of the risk, because you can come to the table with this stellar book, but if it doesn't sell a dime, guess who's out? The narrator's out time.
And why would a narrator do that?
Man, that is a good question. I think you and I can probably, spitball, but, my thought is to try to get as much passive income as possible, whether it's small or big. I don't imagine too many 50-50 splits occur for larger size projects. So I get a lot of auditions for my smaller books that are about 10,000 to 20,000 words. And actually, I had a narrator I spoke with one time. His name is Morris Cravens, excuse me. And Morris did a few of my exercise books. And I'd asked him, why did he take it on? And he just pretty much said, got the time, he's got the expertise. And typically it took him only about a half hour of production beyond the hour. So it was like an hour and a half for every hour of recorded, finished price.
It might also be a good way for them to build up a portfolio. Exactly. I would imagine when someone's on ACX looking for someone to narrate their book, is there a rating system, or can you see how many jobs the person has taken on and the success of those jobs or anything? Are there any statistics about the service providers?
No, unfortunately. And I think that's great. That's a great thing. I wish we would have talked sooner about that, because actually I just put out a video on ACX pros and cons.
Yeah, and we'll link to that below.
Yeah, because I've run into some real issues with narrators. Some of them will accept the job and then they flake out, meaning that they'll say, okay, I'll go ahead and do your book and it will be done, we'll say, in another month. And it's got a deadline, and that deadline goes past. Here's the thing is ACX doesn't babysit and stuff. They don't care. As soon as you get you pretty much discuss things with them, you make the agreement, you make the 50-50 split or the finished price per hour, you're on your own. Unless you pretty much get a hold of them. And I've had to get a hold of ACX to kill some contracts because some narrators kind of flake out. And there's no rating system to where, people can see, okay, this guy got a 1-star because he didn't finish out a job.
Yeah. That's a shame. Why you would think that because Fiverr does that.
Yeah.
Upwork does that. eBay does that. But I don't know. Maybe that's something they'll implement someday, because I would imagine it's been my experience with not audio guys, narrators, but cover designers, writers. My God, there's not a flakier bunch of people on the planet. And when they're doing it as a side gig, it's really easy for them to run off into the woods. So go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt, man. And life gets in the way. That's all well and good. There's some extenuating circumstances, and I'm completely understanding. But man, sometimes when they just get too flaky, it just gets out of control. All right.
Well, I think a part of that might be, Dale, is because they're really not invested in anything at this point. You know what I mean? If you're doing a 50-50 revenue split, what have I got to lose by not doing any? But anyway, go ahead.
And if they have no rating too as well.
Right.
So there's no really, for instance, I have one narrator right now. He has his project well past due, and he's done some great work for me. So I'm not going to give him too hard a time. I had caught up with him and essentially found out that he was getting some finished price per hour jobs. So I was like, dude, A-okay, just let me know where you're at with the project. And as long as you just keep me updated, I'm totally cool with it. If for some reason you want to cancel it, let me know. We'll get a hold of ACX and we'll cancel the agreement. And he's been nothing but just great. Hey, look, I understand. He's taking all the risk. And if there's a finished price per hour gig that he can be able to get money now, I respect that. You got to pay bills. And when you're taking a risk like a 50-50 split, you never know. I mean, is this going to make $1,000 per month for me, or is it going to make me 1,000 pennies.
Yeah. So you go to ACX, you look at the talent that's there, you look at either the finished price per hour, or you look at a revenue split.
Yes, and
Okay.
there's actually even a combination of both of them too as well, which is going to be the finished price per hour or a stipend of some sort, and that 50-50 split. And there have been some narrators that I've worked with that have done the finished price per hour and the 50-50 split, but it's few and far between. I really have to be very much over the moon about their work, as well as be confident in the product that we're going to be putting out. Because if I've got a killer product and I've got a killer narrator, then it's well worth the investment to me.
Okay. I would assume it's like everything. You get what you pay for.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Man, I've had some great narrators. Over the past couple of years, I would say I've worked with easily 30 to 40 different narrators, and some are just fantastic, a dream to work with. And others, well,
the other 98%.
Yeah, but all of them, thankfully, since there is, I have a very thorough vetting process when it comes to people that I'm working with.
Okay.
This is no different. When I put my things up for audition or I seek out someone, I want to make sure that they've got good quality content. So nobody I've ever hired puts out bad work. Nobody. Like every single one of them. And there was even one that I just loved his reading style. He had a little bit of a speech impediment, but it wasn't affecting his ability to read. Mm-hmm. His ability to read was excellent. And I was just like, I loved his speech impediment and I loved his delivery. So I just said, you know what, this is perfect, because it was actually a comedy and satire style book.
Oh, how funny. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I mean, he brought to life, there was no way I could have read that story like he did. Like literally, I was like, it just gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because I just died laughing when I heard him read my comedy content.
That's funny. Okay, so you go to ACX, you post a project, you take auditions, you select someone to narrate the book, and then what?
And essentially, as soon as you get the auditions, let's say you select somebody, then you have to actually make that agreement. And typically what you're going to do is you're going to set a period of time, be 24, 48, or 72 hours as a deadline for them to accept your deal. Okay. They can decline. Typically, it doesn't happen. Sometimes they'll decline it because maybe I give them a deadline that's not good for their schedule. Mm-hmm. So you'll offer, let's say, the first 15 minutes. The first 15 minutes is the most important 15 minutes of the entire project, because this sets the tone. As soon as you agree for the first 15 minutes, you listen to it and you're like, oh, this is great, perfect, and you give the thumbs up, that is when the agreement is rock solid, like 100%, like you guys are married at that point.
Is this an agreement through ACX? I mean, a legal agreement, or just a handshake deal?
Nope, it is a legal agreement done through ACX, because you'll do the agreement at first, okay? But once again, it's not official until you accept the first 15 minutes. So make sure that when you go into that first 15 minutes, that if you've got any reservations, you hear something within that first 15 minutes of the project that doesn't sound right, sound quality. Maybe you're hearing like him like eating something, or like a candy wrapper in the background, or you hear a weed eater
drinking coffee,
drinking coffee, or they're breathing really hard. You got to really pay attention. One of the things is, when you're reviewing some of your narration and your audio, put on some actual headphones. Yeah. Earbuds don't work, because you're not going to pick up those minor details. And it may not seem like much to you, but I want you to put yourself into the shoes of your worst critic. And these people are going to be investing money in things, and they're going to feel compelled to give you 1 star based on like somebody breathing heavily into a microphone. Right. And if there's any doubt, get it out. Tell somebody, hey, I kind of heard a little bit of heavy breathing. Can you clean that up and get that back to me? So make sure that you are really rock solid, because as soon as you accept the first 15 minutes, so there's a deadline for the first 15 minutes. I typically will set like a week to 2 weeks out. I typically will message back and forth and see what works for their schedule. And then for the complete project, let's say you put it another 2-3 months out, whatever's appropriate to the length of yours. So novels, obviously something that's 180,000 words long, don't expect that to be done in the next month. That is just
that's a lot of reading.
That is, and a lot of editing, and a lot of editing, and a lot of polishing. So, but I mean, for something like my exercise books, like the short reads ones, those can take anywhere from about a week to 2 weeks. And, they can usually whip through those pretty fast. So as soon as the 15 minutes is done, they'll apply that, give it to you, you approve it. And at that point, it's off to the races. And what I typically do, and this is something I suggest to you and as well as some of your viewers, is communicate with this person and tell them, hey, look, keep communication open. Let me know how the project is proceeding.
Right.
I've discovered 2 little small problems when it comes along. Okay, you and I both know this. We can get the most rock solid editor in the world, the best proofreaders. We're still going to have mistakes in our books.
Yeah.
Okay. Heck, I even read Mr. Mercedes, a Stephen King book, and it had errors in it. I was like, look at you, Stephen King.
Yeah.
So any rate, you're going to run into errors. So the narrator is actually almost your second line of defense. It's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want him or her to track those, tell them, hey, let me know if you see any kind of discrepancies or if you have any kind of questions.
Yeah.
Some people, the real pros, they just push through. There are some people, though, that really need that hand-holding. Like they're like, did you mean to say this here or do you mean this here? And
right.
So you got to kind of walk them through. There's been some times where I've just been so stinking busy that I say, use your best judgment. And then I'll typically go back through and I'll listen to the audio footage. And it's so important that you do listen to the audio footage. I have to yell at my wife sometimes because she actually has quite a few books out and she never goes back through and really listens to more than like 5 minutes. She's like, done. Oh. Well, here's the issue. This is where it could have turned into a real nightmare. I actually had a book project one time. Narrator handed it in, the final product, and I'm just listening to it as I'm just kind of working on some other things. That's what I do. I play a piano, an air piano.
Yeah.
And I'm working on some things that I'm listening, and I hear, oh, yeah, I better cut this. Right, yeah. It was almost like she had forgotten that was there or had missed it. And thankfully, I caught that. She was I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I don't know how I overlooked that. I'll get it. She had it cleaned up like in like 2 minutes. It was like uploaded. I'm like, excellent. And, it was, so listen to your audio footage. Even if you've got like a Tony Robbins length book, you got to stop and listen to the whole thing. And if you don't do it, hire somebody that will do it, that will sit down for you. You can get like a virtual assistant and say, hey, I just need you to listen for this, and this. And I need you to probably read along with it just to make sure that it's kind of following along in the text and they're not missing like an entire paragraph. So it's so important to kind of make sure you're vetting that material before you get that final approval. So hopefully I'm not going too far for you, am I?
Yep. No, you're doing it. You're doing exactly what I want you to do. So
awesome.
Okay, let's go back into it. There's the thumbnail right there.
Yeah.
So you were just talking about the importance of actually going back and listening to the end product. When you get the end product, how does that come? Is it an MP3 file? Do you download it? What after all is said and done, how do you get the finished product?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, you can get it in a couple different ways. First of all, ACX's dashboard is just amazing. It's just as good as, say, KDP or, CreateSpace. And what it does is they actually have to break it up into chapters. You can only have so many minutes within a chapter. So if you've got a chapter that's really long, I think the most you could put in a single chapter is 45 minutes.
Is that because of the size of the file it generates?
It probably could be for that reason. It's evading my memory right now.
Yeah.
It might be 45 minutes. It could be an hour and 45. I can't recall. There is a limitation. But in any event, you have everything broken up into chapters. You can listen to it streaming on ACX's dashboard, or you can download the MP3 files, which I've done that a few times where I'll download the MP3 files and I'll just listen to it while I'm working out in the gym, making sure I don't hear any kind of issues, that kind of a thing. So you can actually, and here's a really cool thing too, is you download those MP3s, you can actually use those later on as little samples that you can maybe put on your website, things like that. Make sure you tell your narrator so that way, no kind of issues come along where they're like, what are you doing giving away samples? And speaking of, they actually do have I think it's a 3 to 5 minute sample per book, which you usually see that on Amazon too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's typically the one that I try to download and hang on, and I'll share it with other people. But anyway, rabbit trailing here on you. So you can listen to it on ACX, and you can download it through MP3 files.
Let's talk about ownership for a minute, especially if you do a 50-50 revenue split. Who is the copyright holder? Who owns that finished product?
You still own the copyright, okay? You only split ways with the actual distribution rights.
Okay.
Technically, ACX has, if you're doing, oh man, this is where the royalties get really crazy.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't go too far down this path.
I'll pull you back when I need to.
Okay, excellent. So here's where it gets really, really hairy. Okay. Because you're using ACX, you ready for this? This is when it's gonna hurt. Okay. This is the part I don't like. And actually I was speaking with my friend who got in on ACX years ago, and it was completely different back then, but now it's way different. You get only 40% of all sales. 40%. Now, I know. Yeah, I saw that look. You're kind of like,
you mean, what do you mean 40% of all sales? You mean the revenue of those sales?
Exactly. So let's say, for instance, you're selling your audiobooks being sold for $10. You're only going to see $4 of that.
And if you're doing a 50-50 split, you're $2.
Exactly. So this is where it starts to get to be, as my good boy Jason usually says, you're starting to stack pennies. And that's one of the reasons why I'm starting to look into actually narrating my own books and getting possibly away from the ACX platform. And I'll tell you where I'm looking at in a little bit. We can hopefully.
So ACX, they are the ones that are giving you this platform. And I would assume that they're also the one that is hosting the sound files. All the transactions go through them. So like Amazon and CreateSpace does, their chunk of the pie is 60%.
60%.
And you get 40%. And if you are doing a 50-50 split, basically you're going to net 20% there. But you still are the copyright holder, but all the transactions, the tracking and everything is done through ACX.
Yeah, exactly. So, I can kind of complain about it to a certain extent, but to, another extent, they really do handle a lot of the heavy lifting. They don't do any of the promotion for you. There's no real pushing to it. And here's the kicker. The 40% is if you agree to exclusivity on ACX. Now, in the event... That
sounds so familiar.
Exactly.
KDP.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you ready for this? Here's the kicker. Let's say, okay, Tim, you want to go put your audiobooks elsewhere. There are other, distributors, audiobook distributors, but not quite as big as those top three. But if you want to not agree to the exclusivity, it's 25% royalty. Cut that in half. Oh man. I mean, literally you're just fighting for scraps at that point.
Yeah. So if you've got a $10 book, you're literally, you might make $1.20 if you're splitting a 25%. But I guess you really have to weigh, Dale, if you didn't let them do all of that heavy lifting, what would you do? I mean, it would be a real pain in the butt to host your own files, do your own e-commerce. Because I used to do that back in the old days, before platforms like this. We had to do everything manually.
Yeah.
But it seems like that is a big revenue cut. But let's talk about volume. Let's talk about how you increase your bottom line as an author by also offering audiobooks. So because you've told me offline that a good chunk of your revenue comes from the audiobooks.
I wouldn't say a good chunk per se. I would say of my the household income here, I would say it probably makes up maybe 10% of all earnings.
Okay.
But it's still significant. I'm sure there's many people out here that will go, Dale, I'll take your paychecks. And I can't say I blame them. I think it's stellar what I'm able to pull in. So it's amazing for the little amount of publications I have on ACX, because there are some that I haven't even put up on the platform right now because there was that portion of me that I'm kind of like, mine. I'm holding on to it because I want to kind of put it out and try out other avenues.
Right.
As far as, heavy lifting, do they do something like CreateSpace does or KDP Paperback? Not by any stretch.
Yeah.
I really see a bulk of my earnings through that. And for obvious reasons, because, physical books make of all publication market.
Mm-hmm. And that is another interview that I want to do with you is on the create space side of things, because that's one of the things in your publishing business, you are taking advantage of all platforms. To me, it sounds like ACX is what we call here in Alabama gravy. You know what I mean? Once you've got it set up, you're getting your meat and potatoes over here from Amazon and from Kindle and from Create Space. Whatever you get from ACX, that's just gravy.
Exactly. It's I don't want to diminish the value of ACX. It's great, and that's why I continue to actually sing their praises on there. Mm-hmm. Sure, there's some hangups, and there's some things that I'm not agreeing with. For instance, this is something I've glossed over in this interview so far, is they actually offer 25 complimentary codes that you can use for distribution of your book. So let's say, for instance, you got an email newsletter, or you got a website. You can always offer this to your readers as, hey, look, in exchange for an honest review. So for instance, I got a hold of my assistant and I said, okay, I've got way too many freaking complimentary codes and I don't have enough time to handle this. Could you take care of it? So she has actually set up a landing page and an email opt-in. So now we actually have readers coming in that are getting these free audiobooks in exchange for an honest review. And I also have a market here to where, okay, look, I could start to send them other things as far as an email newsletter or special offers, or even set them up as beta readers for future releases. So ACX does want you to succeed. It sounds like they don't, but they really do. I mean, who wants you to come into business, be like, oh, I'm going to take all of his money,
Yeah. What about the narrator, the guy or gal that does the 50% split with you, or does the pay by hour thing? Are they allowed to market the work as well and help you sell these things? Do they do that?
I've had a few that have done it, but for the most part, most of them, it seems like they've already moved on to the next project.
Yeah.
And I can't say I blame them. If they're focusing on 50-50 splits, then they're looking at volume. They're going to try to get as much volume up as possible, because once again, it kind of comes down to that whole stacking pennies. Well, if you're going to want to make those pennies into dollars, into $100 bills and so on and so forth, you're going to need to put massive amount of volume out. So I don't hold it against those ones, but I've had some just great people. There was one, for instance, the comedy book one. This guy actually invested in some promotion for that. And I was like, dude, thanks. I was like, wow. You don't need anything from me? He's like, nope. So he was willing to invest in getting the complimentary codes out and getting, promotion onto that. So that was stellar. Oh, and if, let me see here. There's also, and I just released this yesterday on the video, plug, is the
link below.
Yeah, link below. $50 bounty program.
What is that?
Is stellar. Okay, this right here, I'm telling you this. Are you wearing your Depends right now? Because there's a good chance you might actually soil yourself. Soil.
I've never done that on camera before, but go ahead.
Yeah, this is fun, man. We're going to go buck wild. So here's the deal. You can offer your book as part of an incentive for a 30-day trial of Audible.
You mean your audiobook?
Your audiobook.
Okay.
And I even showed the whole process of how to do it, and actually had released yesterday. And any rate, what happens is, say, for instance, we're going to go back to, we'll say Sons of the Father. Actually, we're going to use your book this time. Let's say Sons of the Father is on Audible. Okay.
It's not, but let's say it is.
Let's just say it is. Okay. So what you do is you can go and create a link to where it will promote your book and the 30-day free trial membership of Audible. If somebody clicks that, it gets added to the cart. They get it for free, but here's the nice thing is if they stay on for Audible, you get a $50 bonus.
Wow. So by that, you mean if they sign up to Audible where they can download audiobooks?
Yep.
What's the normal monthly fee to belong to Audible?
I think it's $14.99, and then you are limited to a certain amount of credits per month. And one credit would be for one audiobook. So
basically, they're giving you the first 3 months of that revenue in your pocket as an affiliate.
Exactly.
It's pretty sweet.
It is nice. And then, let's just say, for instance, that you have a 50-50 split. I'm not going to argue with $25 as a bonus.
No, not at all.
$25 for any book is amazing. Yeah. And, and it's just literally for offering your book. And I look at it from a standpoint of this is I'm putting my book in somebody's hand. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it whets their appetite and gets them interested enough that they're going to come in and want to buy more of them. Because when they're in that Audible program, and let's say they have a credit and they do a credit for another one of my books, mm-hmm. I get paid for that. Okay. Oh. And it just becomes, the rising tide raises all the boats, as they say. And this is one of the things I get so excited about. Here's where it's going to knock your socks off. Okay. A good, I would call them acquaintance. I wouldn't call us good friends. Hopefully he's not watching this and be like, we're friends. He actually says on a low month, and I'm going to say this right now, I haven't done this much, but he said on a low month, he makes anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 per month in bounties alone.
And that's giving away his book, his audiobook?
Yes.
It's not too bad, is it? That's the Pat Flynn model, man.
It's incredible. And I'm like, and this is a guy, he's Honest Abe. It's not like he's gaming the system. He's not doing anything out of the ordinary. All he's doing is offering his book and giving this little downloadable link. And sometimes you don't even have to do it. Bounties can come in naturally because let's say, for instance, someone looks at, 30-day free trial. Oh, well, yeah, I want to get his book anyway, so I might as well just go ahead and get this 30-day free trial at the same time. Bing, bang, boom, and you got yourself some money.
It's almost like it would be worth to put books on Audible just to become an affiliate so you could get that bounty.
Exactly. And this was something actually in cutting edge news. This is not even on my channel right now. I'm trying to look at a way that I can actually get permissions from Amazon to actually promote and advertise my audiobooks for that reason.
Inside your ebooks, you mean?
So actually on Amazon's platform itself.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I tried to, and there are certain permissions that are you can only have. So in order to actually get those type of ads, because a lot of people get ads through, say, AMS, which is Amazon Marketing Services, mm-hmm. Kindle. Mm-hmm. You can actually advertise your paperbacks through services like Amazon Advantage or Amazon Vendor Express. And right now I use the latter model, Vendor Express, for doing my paperback books. And I get some great returns on my investment. Excellent returns. In fact, I can't say enough. We can probably do an entire episode based on Amazon Marketing Services because It is lucrative. It is so crazy, stupid, simple, and cheap. People are paying attention to Facebook ads. I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't know nothing about no Facebook ads, but I know that Amazon Marketing Services is dead simple. And I'm telling you, if you do it just right, you're going to see some serious bank. Okay,
I'm making notes here. You're going to come back and talk about CreateSpace, and you're going to come back and talk about Amazon Marketing Services.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. If anything, I would tell you this, Amazon Marketing Services, we got to tap that one first because it is just an exciting opportunity.
How often have you said the phrase, we're going to tap that one first, Dale, over your life? Never mind. Don't answer that.
Hey, I haven't said it already 10 times.
In the last couple of minutes, we have talk about the options to ACX. I would assume there are some
options, such as
other platforms to publish your audiobooks on.
I'm so glad that you did bring that up because I did say we'd shelf it and come back to it. So right now, what I'm looking at is something yours and one of our favorites, Drafted Digital, had just entered a partnership with Findaway Voices.
Oh.
Now, Findaway Voices, I've only got a tenuous grasp of what they do so far. Okay, they have a different distribution model. I don't know the specific channels they send to, but normally if you go through Findaway Voices, it costs $50 to set up your audiobook. You don't have the narrator marketplace that you usually have on ACX, and pay them finished price per hour. There's no 50-50 split on Findaway Voices.
Okay.
But if you go through Drafted Digital, let's say you publish your book over onto Drafted Digital, they give you the option to go into Findaway Voices for no cost, no setup cost. All you need to do is worry about coming with your own content and putting it up there.
Interesting.
So I'm pumped about this, and I promise you we can double back around to this because I'll probably be, you and I message each other, pretty regularly. I'll let you know how Findaway Voices goes. because I'm actually going to be considering one of my future books, putting it up through that model, and I want to just kind of test it out. And actually, will be my debut narration. I'll be doing it on Find Away Voices.
What if you either do the narration, record that yourself, or you go to Fiverr or wherever, and you have the book recorded outside of ACX? Are you then allowed to upload that file to ACX?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Yes.
So the production does not have to take place within ACX.
No, it doesn't. No, absolutely not. You just come there with the complete project. You can literally, like, the whole process, outside of uploading, because I've never had to upload before, but the whole process of actually doing a book takes about 5 minutes.
I think the only drawback there, maybe you tell me if this is right. If you do that, they're not able to track the 50-50 split with the service provider who recorded the book, I would think, because they have no record of that person being a narrator on their platform. Okay.
Yeah, so you have to actually enter that 50-50 deal.
Or you just pay the guy a flat fee.
Exactly. And I've known some people that actually just kind of do a handshake deal, which I wouldn't recommend unless you're really, really familiar. So I would feel comfortable with doing a handshake deal with you because you and I know each other well enough. But if I just randomly reached out to a narrator, or I've only used them a handful of times, doing a handshake deal just doesn't work for me. I'd probably still go through ACX and use them as, that middleman to hopefully help kind of make sure things don't go south.
Yeah. But you could also go to Fiverr, and there's a lot of good voice talent on Fiverr. Yes. There's a lot of crap there, but there's a lot of really good voice talent as well. I would imagine you're probably going to end up paying more, and you're going to have to pay them up front. But once they deliver the product, you're one and done with them. You give them their money, and there's no legal accounting or anything with it. Then you just upload the file. So a lot of different ways to approach this. All right, I want you to come back. And we're going to talk Create Space. We're going to talk AMS. You're going to go off and do homework on the Find Your Voice or whatever it was.
Yeah, Find Away Voices.
All right, man. Whether you like it or not, you are quickly becoming my expert, which really doesn't speak very well of my sphere of influence here whatsoever.
As long as you don't call me a guru, man, because I'm not chanting high atop of a mountain, and I put my friggin' pants on one leg at a time. So
hey, brother, you got that Dalai Lama head going.
I do. Look at freshly shaved just for the show.
It's lovely. Hey, Dale, if the folks want to learn more about what you do, and we will link to everything below that we've talked about here, tell them how to find you.
You can find me at selfpublishingwithdale.com. It's got all the relevant information as well as the videos, any kind of blog information, all of my relevant social media stuff. So just go over to selfpublishingwithdale.com, or you can find me on YouTube at Self-Publishing with Dale L. Roberts.
And I got to tell you, next to mine, this guy has the best self-publishing show on the YouTube platform, which is why I suck knowledge from him every time I can. My show is great because Dale is always my guest. Hey, buddy, this has been fun. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate your time, man.
See ya.